Vishnupada Paramahamsa Bhagavad-Acharya Ashtatara Shata Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Bhakti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Guru Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Vrindavan Ki Jai Navadvitam Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Yamunamaya Ki Jai Jangamaya Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. La 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 la
start with an introduction prayer on page 1. Ayana Dharmadasya Jnana Jnana Shalatya Chaturmita Mina Tasme Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mahabhishtam Sapita Mina Bhutale Ayam Rupakara Mayam Dhatishva Bhavidakam. I was born in the darkest ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Sri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who is established within this material world with the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me the shelter under his lotus feet? Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamam Shri Guru Vaishnava Shri Rupa Sakratam Sahakairam Padunashri Pitam Tasajevam Savetam Sadutam Prajanam Sagitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lita Shri Vishkashkarvimascha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto those feet of my spiritual master and to the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Goswami along with his elder brothers Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, and Sri Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and the Advaita Acharya, Gadhar Srivasa, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani, Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Vilalita and Vishaka. Hey Krishna Kanara Sindhu Dino Bandhu Jnapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namasute. Almighty Krishna, you are my friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer respectful obeisances unto you. Shapatam Shagarangi Rade Nadastasvade Vrishtabhanu Sute Devi Kamamamare Hare Kriye. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Krishna, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. Panchakapada Paridascha Kripa Sindhu Vayasvedascha Patitanam Haravayo Vaishnavayo Namo Namaha. I offer respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who can fill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees who are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Bhaktinanda, Sri Advaita Gadhar, Sri Bhakti Bhaktinanda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, where did we leave off yet? I was out of town the past few days.
Chapter 12, text 12.
Chapter 12, text 12 is where we left off at?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're starting in chapter 12, devotional service. Starting at text 13 and 14. Aveshta Srava Uttana Maitreya Karuna Evacha Nimama Nirahankara Samadhuka Sutta Sami Santushtas Praha Sattvam Yogi Yatatma Drita Nishchaya Mai Atita Madhubiri Yoma Bhakta Savipriya. Translation. One who is not envious, but who is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, who is free from false ego and equal to both in happiness and distress, who is always satisfied and engaged in devotional service with determination, whose mind and intelligence are in agreement with me. He is very dear to me. Text 15. Yasna no vidyate loko lokana vidyate cha yaha he for whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anxiety, who is steady in happiness and distress, is very dear to me. Text 16. Anapekasha suchir dasha ulashino gata bayata sarva ramba parityagi yoga bhakta same priyaha. Translation: a devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert without cares, free from all pains, and who does not strive for some result is very dear to me. Text 17. Yona vishyati na divasti na suchati na kashashati subhashubha parityagi bhaktimam yasane prayaha. One who neither grasps pleasure or grief, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things is very dear to me. Text 18 and 19. Sama saprocha mitricha tapta manakaman ayo sitoshin shini sukha dukashu sama sangha bhakita tulya nidya sutir mani santushto yena kenachit aniketta sititer bhaktir bhaktimam me priyonara. Translation: one who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equiposed in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contamination, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and engaged in devotional service, is very dear to me. Text 20. Vipugamanyam driktam idam yahogatam paryapasate sridata tanamat parama bhaktaste tiva me priyaha. Translation: he who follows this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engages himself with faith, making me the supreme goal, is very, very dear to me. Next chapter 13. Nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. Text 1 and 2. Arjuna vacha prakritina purusha chaiva sitram sitra jnana uvacha itavitum ichami jnanam yevyam cha keshava Shri Bhagavan vacha idam sariram kanteya Sitram iti ahi idiyati etadya vitti tam prabhu sitra jnana iti tadyaha. Translation: Oh, Arjuna said, "Oh, my dear Krishna, I wish to know what about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field of the knower and the knower of the field, and of the knowledge and the end of knowledge." The blessed Lord then said, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field." Text 3. Sitra jnanam shapi mambiri sarva sitrashu bharata sitra jnana yor jnanam yatcha jnanam matam mama. Translation: O Stana Bharatan, you should understand I am also or it's called knowledge. That is my opinion. Our final verse for tonight, text 4. Tritramya Yatrikcha Yalikari Yatasya Satyachaya Yatpavaspascha Patsamasena Mechanu. Translation. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it's constituted, what its changes are, where it's produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. Turning back to text 13, chapter 12, 13 and 14. Translation of report by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Granthasana Prabhupada. One who is not envious, but who is a kind friend of all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, who is free from false ego, equal in both in happiness and distress, who is always satisfied and engaged in devotional service with determination, whose mind and intelligence are in agreement with me. He is very dear to me. 4. Coming again to the point of pure devotional service. The Lord is describing the transcendental qualities of pure devotee in these 2 verses. A pure devotee is never disturbed in any circumstances, nor is he envious of anyone, nor does the devotee become his enemy's enemy. He thinks that one is acting as his enemy due to his own past misdeeds. Thus it is better to suffer than to protest. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated, Tate Nukampam Sutsami Sayamano. Whenever a devotee is in distress or has fallen into difficulty, he thinks that it is the Lord's mercy upon him. He thinks, thanks to my past misdeeds, I should suffer far, far greater than I am suffering now. So it is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord that I am not getting all the punishment I am due. I am just getting a little. By the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he is always calm, quiet, and patient, despite many distressful conditions. Devotee is also always kind to everyone, even to his enemy. Mama means that a devotee does not attach much importance to the peace and trouble pertaining to the body, because he knows perfectly well that he is not the material body. He does not identify with the body. Therefore, he is free from the conception of false ego and equipped both with happiness and distress. He is tolerant, and he is satisfied with whatever comes by the grace of the Supreme Lord. He does not endeavor much to achieve something with great difficulties. Therefore, he is always joyful. He is completely perfect mystic because he is fixed in the instructions received from the spiritual master, and because his senses are controlled, he is determined. He is not swayed by false argument because no one can lead him from the fixed determination of devotional service. He is fully conscious that Krishna is the eternal Lord, so no one can disturb him. All his qualifications enable him to depend entirely on the Supreme Lord. Such a standard of devotional service is undoubtedly very rare, but a devotee becomes situated in that stage by following the regular principles of devotional service. Furthermore, the Lord says that such a devotee is very dear to him, for the Lord is always pleased with all his activities in full Krishna consciousness. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. This is a very nice chapter describing devotional service. You know, devotional service, bhakti yoga, we're all trying to grow in it. And the best way to grow in devotional service, I always say, just do a little bit more each day. You know, you You can't become a pure devotee just overnight and all at once. You can't become a first-class devotee overnight and all at once. Many of us are just trying to become at least a halfway decent neophyte devotee. And maybe eventually one day maybe a second-class devotee. You know, third class, second class, and eventually first class, and pure devotee. But all these things take time and patience, lots of patience. Because we have so many things that we're working through, so many of these past activities, these past karmic reactions, good karma, bad karma, you know, it's our reactions to our past deeds. So the best way to approach this is just a little bit more each day. Just a drop more each and every day. Set a goal for yourself. Don't be afraid to move outside of your comfort zone. Because if you're not moving outside of your comfort zone each and every day, you're not growing. It's impossible to grow without moving outside your comfort zone. You continually want to just stay inside your comfort zone and not move outside of it, you're not going to make very much advancement at all. You're just going to be stagnant in your devotional service. And one has to take time and remind themselves each and every day, maybe one more minute of chanting, maybe one more minute of seva, maybe one more minute of kirtan, maybe one more minute outside my comfort zone. Each and every day, just do a little bit more. This is how you build in your devotional service. This is the only way to build in your devotional service. I said, you can't just do everything all at once. You just can't become a pure devotee overnight. That takes a tremendous amount of grace coming down from Krishna. Because ultimately we are powerless. We are powerless because of our past actions, past deeds. It takes Krishna's mercy, it takes His grace, it takes the mercy of the spiritual master to help us. That's why we must be patient. Take a little drip at a time. That's a little bit more at a time. If you're having problems waking up in the morning, start waking up 1 minute earlier than what you're used to. 1 minute earlier, and progress that from day to day. Be surprised, even just a little drip at a time, how much progress you can make. Uncomfortable doing your devotional service? Like I said, you gotta step outside your comfort zone. You're staying inside your comfort zone, you're not making progress. Got to continually push ourselves. Every time we step outside our comfort zone, it's like performing an austerity. Because it's not something we're used to. It's something that we're purifying ourselves with. If we're not comfortable doing, 15 rounds and we're trying to do 16 rounds, we're having to step outside our comfort zone for 16 rounds, that's purifying. Once you become comfortable with 16 rounds, you should challenge yourself, maybe one more round. Step outside your comfort zone. We should always be challenging ourselves, trying to push forward in devotional service. And little by little, we can make advancement. This takes time. You can always tell those who have pushed themselves in devotional service in this movement, those who have been in here for, decades, compared to that's been pushing themselves, compared to those who have been in this movement for decades that haven't been pushing themselves. You can see a stark difference in their devotional service, in their attitude, in their humility. So it's always important to challenge yourself each and every day. Move outside your comfort zone. Because if you're not moving outside your comfort zone, you're not making progress. You're just remaining, as you say, a child. The child has to be pushed outside the comfort zone all the time. You have to push them to go to school. You have to push them to do their chores. You have to push them to stay clean. You have to push them to do their studies. You continually have to push a child outside the comfort zone for them in order for them to grow. Because if you don't, they'll always remain a child. They'll never actually grow into adulthood.
It's an odd place for a parent because you're supposed to be their comfort zone. But you're trying to teach them to go outside and use.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes. Yeah, so that's always something important to remember. We'll move on to text 15. He for whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anxiety, who is steady in happiness and distress, is very dear to me. A few of the devotee's qualifications are further being described. No one is put into difficulty, anxiety, fearfulness, or dissatisfaction by such a devotee. Since the devotee is kind to everyone, he does not act in such a way to put others into anxiety. At the same time, if others try to put a devotee into anxiety, he is not disturbed. It is by the grace of the Lord that he is so practiced that he is not disturbed by any outward disturbance. Actually, because the devotee is always engrossed in Krishna consciousness and engaged in devotional service, all such material circumstances cannot rule him. Generally, a materialistic person becomes very happy when there is something for his sense gratification in his body. When he sees that others have something for their sense gratification, he hasn't. He is sorry and envious. When he is expecting some retaliation from his enemy, retaliation from the enemy, he is in a state of fear. And when he cannot successfully execute something, he becomes dejected. But a devotee is always transcendental to all these disturbances. Therefore, he is very dear to Krishna. So yes, as we see here, we're trying to become steady like a pure devotee. Trying to, whatever situation we're putting in, we're trying to be free from the anxiety, free from fearfulness, free from dissatisfaction. And as I was saying, that takes time and patience. Because if you're not moving yourself outside your comfort zone, you're never going to achieve this. You're never going to be able to achieve to be free from anxiety. You're never going to be able to achieve to be free from fearfulness and dissatisfaction if you can't move outside your comfort zone. These are all very important things. Yes? You have a question? You got a microphone for her?
I can speak.
I was kind of compared to people online as well.
So when I see this report, I see a lot of confusion in the world for spiritual sickness. So a lot of this kind of covers reactivity and PTSD, that people prefer not to see spiritual reactivity as something spiritual, but something that can be medicated, or ADHD, or autism, and all that stuff. And it's a matter of that devotee, that person, curing themselves of their past and using the grace of Lord Krishna to do so. So it's something I very much sympathize when I see it in the world. I see even people in my church, trying to diagnose their children with these things, but that's the comfort zone. That's the easy way out. That's not discovering the demon, the darkness, or the past life. Yeah, I pray a lot when I see that. I pray a lot.
we definitely live in a world where, you know, we have all these different diagnoses. When I was young, I was diagnosed with ADHD, ADD, you know. They put me, the doctor recommended that I be put on black coffee at age 5 to calm me down. But unfortunately what that did, that set me up for a lifetime of trying to control my anxiety, trying to control my state through external sources such as caffeine. And starting out with caffeine eventually, led to having to be, Ritalin used. And then there was a combination of Ritalin and antidepressants. And when that didn't work, I gave up, taking prescribed medications and resorted to things like cigarettes. And eventually, marijuana and alcohol and other drugs. And my entire life was based upon trying to keep inside a comfort zone. Trying to maintain, trying to numb my own distresses out.
Artificial imbalance.
Yes.
Artificial balance, my bad.
Yes. And it took a very long time because over time, everything just eventually just became empty. Just not satisfying. No matter how much marijuana I smoked, no matter how much whiskey I drank, no matter how much acid I dropped, no matter how many shrooms I did, eventually it all came back to I was always coming down off all these things, and always in distress, always in discomfort when I didn't have these things trying to fill this space, this void, this emptiness. Just to persevere, try to live a normal life with ADD, ADHD. But it wasn't until I really cracked down and, started practicing devotional service, which helped a lot, and also keeping a food diary. Realizing that, there's different foods that were setting my ADHD symptoms off, like vegetable oils. This high omega-6 diet, seems to have inhibit dopamine production, and it caused, tremendous cravings. And it wasn't until all that, that I was able to make corrections. I look back at it now, it's like there was times that I didn't know how to make it through a day, without cigarettes, without marijuana, without some whiskey. It's like, if you told me I had to get up that day and go to work without these things, it was horrible. I was in distress. I was in anxiety. How am I going to make it through the day without a little bit of weed? How am I going to make it through work without a smoke break? Oh my gosh, I'm just going to be angry with everybody, But, we came to the realization, after sticking to a diet that was free from vegetable oils, it was just by mere accident that I was able to link it to my ADHD symptoms. Because one day I was 6 months into, because I was just trying to correct, acid reflux, which I had really bad. And so I eventually linked it to vegetable oils, and I corrected that. And 6 months into this diet, I'm drinking coffee one night. Next thing I know, I'm like, holy cow, what's going on? I'm getting I think this is a caffeine buzz. And I was bouncing off the walls, I was just like, whoa, just super energetic. That's when I had to take a step back and do a little more research, and I'm like, because this is the first time I actually had a caffeine buzz. Because caffeine used to put me to sleep. I could drink a whole cup of coffee and go to sleep, no problem. Because it has the opposite effect on people with ADHD. because of the mind. And so it's been interesting because people know that I can be very hyperactive here in devotional life. You know, I get excited really easy. I like to play a lot, but I've learned to use my hyperactivity, you know, in devotional service. You know, and it's actually fulfilling, not to try to restrain it, you know, because it was an entire life of trying to restrain something. My parents trying to restrain it, my teachers trying to restrain it, me trying to restrain it at work, you know, trying to fit in, trying to live normally as a normal person. But yeah, it's got to move outside your comfort zone. That's all there is to it. To make progress, to move forward in devotional service. To get to these states to where you're not being disturbed and without anxiety, without fearfulness, without dissatisfaction. No matter what Maya throws at you, because you're in service to Krishna. You know where your destiny's going. You're going to be there serving Krishna in the long run. Move on to text 16. A devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and who does not strive for some result, is very dear to me. Purport. Money may be offered to a devotee, but he should not struggle to acquire it. If automatically, by the grace of the Supreme, money comes to him, he is not agitated. Naturally, a devotee takes bath at least twice in a day and rises early in the morning for devotional service. Thus, he is naturally clean, both inwardly and outwardly. A devotee is always expert because he fully knows the sense of all activities of life, and he is convinced of the authoritative scriptures. A devotee never takes the part of a particular party. Therefore, he is carefree. He is never in pain because he is free from all designations. He knows that his body is a designation, so if there are some bodily pains, he is free. The pure devotee does not endeavor for anything which is against the principles of devotional service. For example, constructing a big building requires great energy, and a devotee does not take to such business if it does not benefit him by advancing his devotional service. He may construct a temple for the Lord, and for that he may take all kinds of anxiety, but he does not construct a big house for his personal relations. Text 17. One who neither grasps pleasure or grief, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, is very dear to me. Purport. A pure devotee is neither happy nor distressed, nor material gain and loss, nor is he very much anxious to get a son or disciple, nor is he distressed by not getting them. If he loses anything which is very dear to him, he does not lament. Similarly, if he does not get what he desires, he is not distressed. He is transcendental into the face of all kinds of auspicious and inauspicious and sinful activities. He is prepared to accept all kinds of risk for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Nothing is impediment in the start of his devotional service. Such a devotee is very dear to Krishna. And I think Prabhupada is a great example of this. I mean, he came over, when he should have been retiring. Came across overseas to a foreign country that he'd never been to. No friends or family here. Just maybe a few pennies to his name. Having to stay at if I remember correctly, at the beginning, he was staying at a YMCA, and eventually, stayed, with someone offered him room and board, but he came over here with nothing to fulfill his spiritual master's request that he spread Krishna consciousness to the West. And with nothing. At an age that, most of us are retiring at, or looking, for our retirement home and, wanting to try to kick back and live an easy life the rest of our life. He was just beginning. From that time, from within 10 years of arriving here in America with nothing, he managed to create a worldwide movement, temples all over the world, thousands of disciples. And he was always pushing forward. No matter what difficulties came his way, he was always moving forward, never backwards, one step at a time. Text 18 and 19. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equiposed to honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contamination, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and engaged in devotional service, is very dear to me. Purport. Devotee is always free from all bad association. Sometimes one is praised and sometimes one is defamed. That is the nature of human society. But a devotee is always transcendental to artificial fame and infamy, distress or happiness. He is very patient. He does not speak of anything but the topics about Krishna. Therefore he is called silent. Silent does not mean that one should not speak. Silent means that one should not speak nonsense. One should speak only of the essentials, and the most essential speech for the devotee is to speak of the Supreme Lord. He is happy in all conditions. Sometimes he may get very palatable foodstuffs, sometimes not, but he is satisfied. Nor does he care for any residential facility. He may sometimes live underneath a tree, and he may sometimes live in a very palatable building. He is attractive to neither. He is called fixed because he is fixed in his determination of knowledge. We may find some repetition descriptions of the qualifications of a devotee, but this is just to give an illustration of the fact that a devotee must acquire all these qualifications. Without good qualifications, one cannot be a pure devotee. One who is not a devotee has no good qualifications. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop good qualifications. Of course, he does not externally endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him develop them. Text 20. Translation. He who follows the perishable path of devotional service and who completely engages himself with faith, making me the supreme goal, is very, very dear to me. Purport. In this chapter, the religion of eternal engagement, explanation of the process of transcendental service of approaching the Supreme Lord, is given. This process is very dear to the Lord, and he accepts a person who is engaged in such a process. The question who is better, one who is engaged in the path of the personal Brahman, or who is engaged in the personal services of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was raised by Arjuna, and the Lord replied to him so explicitly that there is no doubt that devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the best of all processes of spiritual realization. In other words, in this chapter it is described that through good association, one develops attachments for pure devotional service, and thereby accepts a bona fide spiritual master, and from him begins to hear and chant and observe the regular principles of devotional service with faith. Attachment and devotion, and thus becomes engaged in transcendental service of the Lord. This path is recommended in this chapter. Therefore, there is no doubt that devotional service is the only absolute path for self-realization, the attainment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Absolute Truth is described in this chapter is recommended right up to the time one surrenders himself for self-realization. In other words, as long as one does not have the chance to associate with a pure devotee, the impersonal conception may be beneficial. In the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, one works without fruitive result, meditates and cultivates knowledge to understand spiritual matter. This is necessary as long as one is not in the association of a pure devotee. Fortunately, if one develops directly a desire to engage in Krishna consciousness and pure devotional service, he does not need to undergo step-by-step improvements in spiritualization. Devotional service is described in the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita as more congenial. One need not bother about materials to keep body and soul together, because by the grace of the Lord, everything is carried out automatically. By the association of pure devotee, all these associations are so powerful. We want to, just like an iron rod, you stick an iron rod into a fire, keep it in the fire long enough, and associate with the fire, it becomes red hot, pull it out of the fire, you touch the paper, touch the wood, touch the things that are flammable. It takes on the quality of the fires and transfers the quality of fires to the other things and catches things on fire. Much like devotional service. So if you're associating with devotees, which is very powerful, associating with the deities, associating with things offered to the Lord, all these things are lighting that fire within you and helping you improve in your devotional service. Just like if you want to become a rich man, you got to go associate with rich people. You want to become a doctor, you got to go associate with doctors. Now, if you want to become, good in a skilled trade, like become a plumber or a carpenter or mechanic, you got to go associate with those people. You can't just learn them on your own. You have to have that association. You have to, you can try to learn it on your own, but without the association of these people, without the association of the books, studying, you're not going to make a very good mechanic. You're not going to make a very good doctor if you're not associating with medical books, you're not associating with doctors, and not be afraid to go to you. So much like with this devotional service, we're associating with the spiritual master, which is very important. The spiritual master is who guides us and helps us learn how to surrender, helps us learn how to love Krishna and serve Krishna in devotional service. Because love, it sounds so easy, to offer Krishna pure loving devotional service. But we only know this perverted form of love in the material world that we're taught, where people use it just loosely. I love my car, I love my house, I love my front yard, I love my pet cat, I love my goldfish, And people use it so loosely. We don't know what real love is. But God is love. So to understand God, you must understand love. And to understand love, you can understand God. And since we don't understand either of these things, we need the spiritual master. Spiritual master who's expert in teaching us on how to love, how to serve God. Any questions or comments so far? Ms. Barber?
I was wondering if you had any comments on what this text said.
Okay.
I was wondering if you had any comments on what this text 17 says. Auspicious things is very dear to me. It sounds like it would be obvious if I renounce inauspicious things that it would be a good thing, but auspicious things?
Okay, Granny, you can go ahead.
So, let's look at check 17 also.
Okay.
Yeah,
17?
oh, we're just on. Yeah. Yeah, this one. Which text is this?
Text 20.
Text 20. Let me comment on text 20.
Text 7.
He who follows this perishable path of devotional service and who completely engages himself with faith, making me the supreme goal, is very, very dear to me. So this is Supreme Personality of Godhead speaking, Lord Krishna. He's telling us what we have to do, and that's why Bhagavad Gita is so important, because it's above all the other rituals and rules and regulations that we need to follow that are good for us, but that this one thing, this includes everything, because if one is working completely for Krishna, then he automatically becomes a good person. That's what it means in the purport where it says that one who's a devotee has all the good qualities of the demigods or higher, and those who are not devotees don't have any good qualities, because that's what it means. That if one has one good quality of serving Krishna and giving his life to Krishna, then that makes up for all the negatives or minuses he has in his character. Because eventually all those things will go away. And it's like a person who has taken the fan and unplugged it from the wall. The blade still continues to go around for a while. And some may look and say that, no, the fan's still running, otherwise how would the fan still be going around? That's just the momentum from before of the blade. But now it's slowing down, and in a short time, the fan will stop and there'll be no more air coming from the fan. Similarly, one who takes up devotional service with imperishable, with devotional service, with faith, and is really dedicated, then all the good qualities will come. All the unnecessary things will go away. It's like if one takes a good food, then all the problems that he has from not eating good food go away. So he doesn't have to do anything separate. That's why devotees, they don't necessarily have to take up separate process, how to be polite, how to be clean, how to be punctual. These things automatically come by devotional service. And if they don't come, then you just be patient. Go on with devotional service, and they'll come. Maybe we don't see them because they're sometimes imperceptible to us. Okay, so that was one point, and I heard there was a question about text 17. Can we turn to that, please? What was that question?
You want us to repeat the question?
Of course, yeah, it had to do with text 17.
Yeah, I had just asked Maharaj about the text says one who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, and it seemed like it would be obvious that inauspicious things would be good to renounce, but why would I renounce auspicious things?
That's a good question. The reason we would renounce auspicious things is because auspicious here means auspicious materially. There can be something auspicious materially, but not spiritually. In other words, by taking a bath at a certain time, it's auspicious. But if he takes bath every day at an auspicious time, that's very nice. But if he's not doing anything for Krishna, he's not learning to love Krishna, then what's the use of it all? It's like he went through all like the beautiful girl who was getting ready to go to the fair. She was dressing herself very auspiciously, appropriately, but she got a little too carried away with the dressing and the cleaning so that when by the time she went out, the fair was already past. So she missed the fair. So we don't want to worry about the auspicious things at the loss of missing the real goal. The goal is Krishna, is to love Krishna. And the gopis showed that they did a lot of somewhat auspicious things that they gave up for Krishna, and they gave up inauspicious things also for Krishna. So this is a nice way of putting it, that whether it's popular or unpopular, whether it's clean or not clean, but whatever it may be, the thing, Krishna has to be in the center. And when Krishna is the center of that service, then it all becomes more than auspicious. It becomes completely transcendental. And transcendental is better than something that's good materially. That's a brief explanation. Thank you very much.
So it's balance. Krishna is balance. He is joy, he is all the ways and all the values. And so when you have this balance, you go from being, I am so right and I do so well, that when you say those things, you separate yourself from the other centers. But if we are to be of Krishna, then we are to minister to those centers, and we can't do so by separation. So it's a matter of balance between good and dark and right and wrong. There's a place in between.
And thank you for the comments. Yes, Krishna is the originator of everything. That's the most important thing to remember. That none of us can make advancement without His grace. None of us can. We can't do anything without Krishna's mercy and grace. That's why it's always important to pray to Krishna each and every day and beg Him. We beg Him for advancement, devotional service. Beg Him to increase our desires for Him. Without His grace, it's we can't do this on our own. We can't do this through sheer willpower. We always need to ask for His grace and ask for the Guru's grace and mercy. Thank you for this time. It's time for time is up for our class tonight. Please forgive me for any offenses. Shri Bhagavatam Ki Bhagavad Ki Jai.
Can I actually keep this review real quick? Hey, long there.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.